Competitive Inazuma 11 is one of the most entertaining scenes out there. But why is that? Is it because of the hype potential? Is it because of the skill on display? Is it because of the massive numbers we see through spirit big moves triggering some type of primal instinct inside of us? No, no, and fuck no, fuck spirit big moves. The reason is because it's funny as fuck. From one of the most unathletic specimen you've ever seen being one of the best strikers in the game, to one of the most viable strategies being to squat down, do the cha-cha slide at the goofiest angles known to man in order to break the keeper's ankles and walk straight into the goal. To put it simply, it's a circus out here. So pull up, sit back and enjoy the show. This is Kabeyama, also known as Jack. When you look at Kabeyama, what position comes to mind? Something defensive, right? His imposing frame would be a great asset to any backline of a team in Inazuma 11. And those legs are built like french fries. It's a miracle he can support his own body weight, let alone kick a ball. Damn! Which is why his innate position is, and always has been, defense. Now what if I told you that not only is he a solid defender, but in one of the OG Saga games, he's one of the best strikers you can choose from. And no, that's not a joke and I'm not on crack. If you spend as much time as I do looking at stats, you may have realized that players have two stat spreads for Inazuma 11-1. This is because from the Japanese/American release to the European release, the way stat spreads function changed. In the American/Japanese version, there were 6 set stat spreads, and players were given one of those 6, whereas in future games such as the European version and all games onwards, players have unique stats to them, which is much better overall for character design and immersion since it adds to their personality and emphasizes their motifs. But it's worse overall for game balance since now some players just objectively shit in comparison to others. But back to Jack. In the Japanese and American version, he has a stat spread that gives him 99 raw kick. I don't think I need to explain how ridiculous that is. But I will anyway. Axel, the ace striker of the team, the canonically best player you have on the front line, doesn't have a kick stat that high. For those of you who've taken a look at stats, you may realize that Kevin, Raimon's other great striker, also has 99 kick. So what makes Jack on the same level as Kevin, or better? Jack has a higher freedom stat than Kevin, meaning out of the two, Jack is always going to have the highest potential kick stat since his kick stat can be trained higher. If you give Jack one of the strongest shot type moves in the game, he'll function as a great, well-rounded player who's a menace in command duels. Players also had higher TP in that version of the game, so they could afford to use way more moves. So not only is Jack a good option for your front line, he is one of the best options for your front line. So what did we learn here today? Don't judge a book by its cover.
Hello to all T-Byte viewers, my name is Haku. I have a YouTube channel where I upload strikers competitive videos, playing tournaments against people from all over the world, and I'm here to assist T-Byte on this video about funny things in Inazuma 11 competitive. As you might have guessed from now, I will be going and explaining a few things about Inazuma 11 Go Strikers competitive, how it works, or to be more precise, the technique of no-meshing. Now a few of you might ask, what even is no-meshing? How do you no-mesh? What kind of stupid name is that? No-meshing is considered scoring goals without the use of any shooting techniques. So when playing the no-mesh playstyle, you make use of player models and game mechanics to bypass the opposing goalkeeper without having to break through them with a shot, disabling the goalkeeper from using any goalkeeping moves to prevent the attack. There is a general formation that is played in both no-mesh and training teams, which is F middle block 3-4-1-2. To play no-mesh well, you usually want a solid defensive area around your defenders and your defensive midfields, and the wingers, the offensive midfield and the forward positions are usually occupied by players with either good dribbling capabilities, just generally high move power and good dribbling stats, or just people who have a solid dribbling and can use dashes. That can be either the white rush or the red rush. Now, to score a no mesh, there's many different ways that you can do it with. The most simple way, the most straightforward way, is to just dash around the goalkeeper. To perform this, you need to have mastered a technique called infinite dashing, where you basically cancel the standing up animation from the dash, cancelling out the knockback from dashing to perform an infinite chain of dashes to move over the field. If you time it correctly with a good distance, you can bypass goalkeepers and just dash into the goal without triggering the goalkeeper techniques or any kind of duel that would lose you the ball. There are a lot of variations when it comes to dashing no meshes. You can do the dash goal from the side, you can do it centrally, but what you can also do is just do a singular dash, and when the goalkeeper goes down to pick up the ball, his hitbox gets disabled, it gets focused onto the ground. So by dashing to the side and evading that, you can then perform a normal shot to score and not trigger the goalkeeper's hitbox, to just go straight into the goal, as you can see in this clip shown right here. A lot of other no meshes work with just generally disabling the goalkeeper's hitbox by baiting him into going somewhere completely else. There's quite some variations for this as well, and the most commonly used one is the so-called Inazuma shot. You keep the ball on your wing player on the outer side and charge up a shot, not a special shot, just a regular shot with a lot of power. And how the AI movement works is it will place your offensive midfielder right in front of the goalkeeper. So if you have a tall player, you can spam the shot button to trigger another shot mid-air to shoot it, which will also make the goalkeeper dive into nothing, as the normal shot just surpasses the goalkeeper and goes right past him into the net. Now here as well there are some variations, as you hopefully will be able to see, by doing a short pass back from inside the penalty area to a player who's just right outside, charging a weak shot to pass the goalkeeper, or just generally using simple passes that turn into red passes that will also enable you to do a charged shot, bypassing the goalkeeper's hitbox and entering the opposing net right away. It must be noted that no mesh is definitely not something you can just easily learn. It requires a lot of practice and a whole lot of strategizing to master every single no mesh in the best way possible. It is one of the most consistent ways of scoring goals in high-level competitive of Inazuma 11 Go strikers. That's it already from my part. Thank you for listening to my bullshit, and back to you, T-Byte.
Thank you, Haku. Now imagine if you could turn a giraffe inside out and it'd transform into a turtle. That's basically what this next mechanic is. Reverse positioning. Arguably the most what the fuck mechanic in the series. Each player has a set of stats, as we went over before. Those stats usually correlate with their position and allow them to fulfill their role on the pitch better. Some of the stats were clearly well thought out and carefully crafted by the devs for their character. Some were not. But you can tell all that shit to go fuck itself. Reverse positioning basically allows you to roleplay as God. But if you had dyslexia. You see this shit doesn't fucking mean anything in GoTo Chrono Stones. When training characters, freedom is still a thing in GoTo. But if you train a character beyond the numerical limit and post on them by their freedom stat, then the stat will still go up. If any of your Pokemon fans familiar with EV training, you might have just developed some sort of psychosis. But don't worry, it's not as free as it sounds. When you train up a stat beyond the character's freedom limit, yes, the stat will go up, but a corresponding stat will go down. The stat that will go down depends on the position of the player, as well as the stat you're training. So you could boost the hell out of a stat until the corresponding one reaches 1. I mean, you could get some diabolical stat spreads that are borderline hilarious. Aside from stat spreads, what else makes this funny? The fact that most players are just kind of shit at the positions they were built and designed for. For example, goalkeepers are borderline useless, not just as goalkeepers, but overall. For the highest damage output potential, you're going to want to max out a player's technique stat, as well as the main primary stat needed for that position. But as I mentioned before, as one stat goes up, another will go down if you're over your freedom limit. And the main stat you need is tied to your player's technique stat. And because of this, as I said before, keepers are borderline useless. For example, let's take defenders and midfielders. They are both better goalkeepers than goalkeepers. As a goalkeeper, we'd want to max out our catch stat, but also max out our technique stat. But as a goalkeeper, your technique stat is tied to your catch stat, so you can't really do much in terms of min-maxing a goalkeeper for the goalkeeping position. Do you realize how funny that sounds? But let's take a midfielder. If you want our midfielder to be useful in goal, we want them to have max catch and max technique. A midfielder's catch stat is tied to their kick stat. As a goalkeeper, you're not really going to need your kick stat much, so it's fine to drop it to 1 in order to max the fuck out of your catch stat. We also want max technique. As a midfielder, your technique stat is tied to your dribble stat, but as a goalkeeper, you don't need your dribble at all, so reducing that to 1 and maxing the technique stat is completely fine. And this will give you a much better keeper on average than if you were to just use a normal goalkeeper. It's like a human jumping into the water and being better at being a fish than a fish is. So what did we learn here today, guys? Don't judge a book by its cover. But also don't judge a book by its insides. Turn that shit inside out and then judge it. Like, comment, subscribe, check out Haku, his link is in the description, and the channel should be in the end card. Goodbye.